Hey there guys, welcome to the Fit for 90 podcast. I'm your host, Kane Bandel, footballer and strength and conditioning coach. Today is all about how to train the right movement patterns in the gym, and ultimately I'm going to give you guys what I've created to be the Footballer'S strength code. It's something that we use inside our program. I've put it together in a way that players that aren't in the program right now can take it away and implement it immediately off the back of listening to this. If you want that free document, at the end of this podcast, I will tell you exactly how you can get your hands on it completely free of charge so you can start to train like an athlete in the gym. Now, the biggest mistake we're seeing players make at the moment is they're going into the gym, they're training like bodybuilders. And if your primary focus, if your primary goal is to purely look good in the mirror, then that is absolutely fine. Crack on. Train like a bodybuilder. I have nothing against bodybuilders. I did it myself for a very, very long time. However, when we start to shift towards the goal of wanting to perform better on a football pitch, wanting to be stronger, wanting to be quicker, wanting to be more powerful, win more headers, get around the pitch for 90 plus minutes, breeze past your opponent, when we start looking at those as your main training goals, as your main targets, then what you do in the gym needs to reflect that. And bodybuilding training does not match up to that. It does not hit the brief, unfortunately. So I'm going to teach you in this episode the exact movement patterns that you need to be using, as you can see in front of you. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, by the way, you'll be able to see this. And those of you listening on Spotify, perhaps via podcast, you might still be able to see this, but I'm going to talk you through it anyway, okay? And as I say, at the end of this, if you want to get your hands on the Footballer'S strength code, then you just need to drop me a message and I can send you that completely free. Now, we're going to go through the movement patterns. We're going to go through 2 and 3 day splits in the gym and what that actually looks like so you can actually take something away and implement it straight away. I'm not holding anything back here. I'm trying to give you everything I can, all the stuff that I've learned. I'm trying to put it into hopefully what is like a 20, 30-minute podcast, right? So we're going to get straight into it. Now, if you are training like a bodybuilder, you're probably missing a lot of key movement patterns that actually make you powerful on the pitch. And often what we see with bodybuilding training is there's no real focus on power work. There's no real focus on plyometrics. There's no lateral movement in there. There's no rotational movement in there. And what ends up happening is you get certain areas of the body gets neglected. Other areas become big and stiff because you're really trying to kind of focus on how you look, trying to build some lean muscle, trying to chase that pump. And it shows up on the pitch negatively because then you feel like you can't get around the pitch. You turn like a bus. You're probably really weak in your posterior chain, which is your hamstrings, your glutes. Your core's not that strong, even though you might look strong. You're not strong on the football pitch and you probably get knocked off the ball by guys that are maybe half your size. If you've got someone who's trained like an athlete, even if they are half your size, they will 100% be a handful when you cross that white line on a Saturday or on a Sunday, or even in the middle of the week when you're playing goals and small-sided football. So how do we look at, how does this look in the gym? How do we break this down? So I'm going to go through it step by step with you. First of all, we start looking at what movement patterns do I need to be training in the gym? Like, where do I need to be focusing my energy? I like to categorize the way that I do it in the program, and the way I essentially build my programs for my players is I try and categorize movements into about 8 patterns. Okay, some coaches go for 6, some go for slightly more, but I think if we go for the 8 I'm about to speak about, I think this is a really good starting point for a lot of players listening to this right now. So as you can see, we've always got power and plyometric work at the beginning. This is really important. This needs to be at the start of your workout once you've done a good warm up. What does that look like? Broad jumps. Jumping out as far as you can, doing that repeatedly once you get more advanced. Med ball throws, rotational throws. Something I've started implementing a lot recently is in my gym, they've got like this wooden wall that they built specifically for rotational throws with these big wall balls, which is wicked because a lot of gyms don't have this. They don't allow you to throw the balls against the wall because it puts a hole in the wall, which you've probably seen in your gym. So they built this to allow people to practice and train and throw this. I think this is a lot of it's maybe to do with high rocks when people are doing wall balls and things like that. I've utilised it from a performance standpoint to start doing rotational throws. And the knock-on effect of doing that is I'm finding I'm much more agile. I'm better in 50-50s. I've got more rotational power, so I actually feel like I'm kicking the ball further and I'm doing it with ease. I'm doing it a little bit easier than I probably would when I wasn't training this. It's a really simple technique that you can add to your training. And quite honestly, it's quite fun. Like throwing some heavy shit around the gym is fun. We've then got plyometrics. This is something that a lot of players know they need to do and they don't do it, or they just really just don't know what plyometrics are. It's completely alien to them. So the first category of those two, the ones that know they should be doing it, don't do it. They often don't do it because they're scared of what it's going to look like in the gym. Now, I appreciate this because I used to be exactly the same many years ago. And quite honestly, I stepped into the gym today. I mean, I stepped into the gym the other day and I was doing continuous broad jumps on the sled track. And I knew there was going to be people watching and thinking, what the fuck is that guy doing? However, I know that it's beneficial for me and my goals. Just as someone doing bicep curls who wants to get bigger arms is beneficial for their goals, right? Doing those dumbbell curls. No one really looks down on them or looks at them and think, what the fuck is that guy doing? Whereas when you start jumping around in the gym, people have this weird stance on it. However, I think as we kind of progress, and I mean it's 2025 at the time of recording this, people are a lot more switched on to plyometrics and power work and training like an athlete. I think people are shifting more towards that, more of like a performance focus in the gym rather than just going in to chase that pump. There are still guys and girls that are going to do that, which is absolutely fine, but I think people are more open to that performance type of training right now. So sometimes it's about owning it and saying, listen, I'm here to train, I'm here to achieve a certain goal, right? And that means I need to be jumping around in the gym. If that means you're going to get a few looks, then fuck it, so be it. It is what it is. You have to go in with that mindset. And it's something that I've kind of adapted quite well for myself. A lot of our players start to adapt this as well, the ones that are a little bit more kind of self-conscious when they're doing their plyos. And often what we'll start with is like very simple on-the-spot plyometrics in the corner of the gym where no one's really looking and it doesn't look too crazy. And then we can progress from that. And you can start to build that out. Especially if you're a bit more of a beginner, you don't want to be doing anything too advanced anyway to start with. Okay? Why do we need to be doing the power and plyometric work? It's going to improve your rates of force development, which quite simply means that it's going to improve your ability to produce force almost instantaneously on a football pitch, which, as we know, is very important. That first part of your workout, the power and plyometrics you can see in front of you, this is going to bridge the gap between the gym and the pitch. Otherwise, you're always just going to be gym strong. You will never be football strong. This is probably the most important, and that's why I put it first. From there, we're going to start to look at the other movements. So we've got squatting. So back squats, front squats, split squats. Front squats in particular are an absolute, for me, they're the king of all squatting exercises, more than a normal back squat. We had a guy in the program, we've got a guy in the program recently, his back squat was 120. So his back squat in 120 kilograms. Very good, especially for his weight. We then said, right, let's progress this a little bit. Let's try and do some front squats. And I knew that the front squats would humble him a little bit because you can never generally, when you make the switch from back squats to front squats, having never done front squats before, you're always going to be at a much lower weight. And they were really humbling. I think you can only do like 60, 70 kilograms on there. And the reason why that was is because it required a slightly different setup, but more core stability. There was more upper back stability required, and it was a lot more demanding for him as an athlete. And we see this across the board. Most players find front squats and back squats. So that's why personally, I think from a performance standpoint, having the front squat in there, because it integrates so much more, you have to really lock in your core. You have to really lock in your shoulder blades and your upper back, as well as your lower body strength. I think it is the king of all squat exercises. We then also put split squats into that same category of the squatting movement. The reason why we do that is because everything we do on a football pitch, more often than not, is never going to be like really rigid like we are in a squat movement. So say, for example, we've got a front squat where our feet are kind of parallel to each other. Very rarely are we in that position on the football pitch. We find ourselves in these staggered stance positions, often on a single leg. So it's important that our gym training reflects that. So a split squat is a great way to train that. Getting really strong in a split stance position is very useful on a football pitch, and we can then progress that to doing more single leg exercises. Why do we need to be training our squats with good load? Because it's going to improve our jump height. It's going to improve our ability to win more headers. It's also going to help with lower body strength and robustness. So also boosting our kind of injury prevention. Really, really important part of your workout. Your squats need to be in there. We then look at hinging, something that not enough players actually do. When we're hinging, we're looking at Romanian deadlifts, so like a stiff leg deadlift. We're looking at hip thrusts, barbell hip thrusts. We're looking at trap bar deadlifts, which I think is also up there with front squats, like a brilliant exercise. The reason why trap bar I think is so good is because it's very much, it doesn't require a lot of teaching. It's quite simple to like load the bar with a very good amount of load, by the way, and crack on with it. Like you don't need to learn, for example, compared to a stiff leg deadlift, you don't need to learn the technique as much as you might do with a stiff leg deadlift compared to a trap bar deadlift. So hip thrusts are another good one. You can literally load the bar, providing you've got you're not hyperextending your back. You can get some good load on there and work that hinging movement where you're essentially thrusting your hips. Okay, because we're going to be working our posterior chain, which is your glutes, your hamstrings, your lower back. If we can improve those areas of the body, there's a big correlation, a massive correlation between a strong posterior chain and being faster, being able to accelerate, pass your man quicker, but also from an injury prevention standpoint. Hamstring injuries are very, very common, especially this time of year. It's like October the 15th at the time of recording this. We're going to go into a period now where the pitches are heavier, the game schedule is coming thick and fast. I mean, for me personally, I've got a game tonight, believe it or not. So we played Saturday, we played Tuesday last week, Saturday before that, we're playing Wednesday night tonight, we've got a game Saturday again, then we've got another Tuesday night, then another Saturday. With that schedule, plus the pitch is getting heavier, the body is it's going to take its toll. I'm already feeling it a little bit, and I really look after myself. So it's going to definitely have an impact. So you need to make sure your gym work is drip fed throughout the week, over the course of the month, but also it's focusing on these different movement patterns, in particular the hinging movements, because otherwise those heavy pitches take a lot from your legs, a lot from your hamstrings, and then we see a lot of hamstring strains and hamstring injuries occur because players haven't prepared for the demands of what they're going into during the winter months. We then look at pushing, pressing, upper body exercises, okay? The reason why we put these together is because essentially they're upper body push, upper body press exercises. They're a similar type of movement, all right? So we've got a dumbbell shoulder press, we've got a dumbbell bench press, we've got push-ups, we've got weighted push-ups. Landmine presses. Landmine presses are a great one to develop both your upper body strength, your pushing strength, but also to integrate a bit of core stability in there, because when you've got the landmine on one side, when you're holding that barbell and then trying to press it overhead, your core is doing a lot of work. It's a real good one for football performance. It'll also help you with 50-50, so when you're going to 50-50, you're feeling a bit more robust, and also when you're shielding the ball, when you're trying to hold an opponent off, you need that upper body strength. It's important to have that work in there. So pushing and pressing is really important. I do add bench presses in here and there, especially more for beginners, the pressing movement, but I tend to kind of come away from bench presses as the player gets a bit more advanced, because I like to do more single arm variations where we can start to test the core stability as well as their upper body pushing strength. So bench pressing is a good one, but I like to come away from that personally. That's what we do with our players in the program. So if you're doing a shitload of bench press at the moment, maybe try and mix out with like an incline dumbbell bench press, maybe a normal dumbbell bench press, maybe a single arm dumbbell bench press. And how it feels, it'll feel a lot different. You'll require a lot more from your core, from your glutes, because it requires more stability, because the weight is only on one side. We then got pulling and rowing exercises. So these, again, fall in a similar category. Pulling being chin-ups and pull-ups. They're the two best ones, right? And then row variations. There's so many different row variations. We've got bent over dumbbell rows. We've got both single arm and double arm, that is. We've got barbell rows. We've got seated rows. There is a lot of different variations you can implement, and you can drip feed them over the course of a season, doing different types of row variations, progressing from one to the next. The reason why this is important is going to help you the posture, it's going to help you balance the pressing and pushing exercises you're doing for your upper body as well. And it'll also help the sprint mechanics. Having a really good posture and having a good kind of powerful back is going to actually help you to sprint faster. So it's important that you include that stuff in there. It's also great for your core. When you're doing chin-ups and pull-ups, your core is working super hard to help you to kind of brace and pull yourself up that bar. A lot of what we do, especially inside Fit for 90, is we try and integrate and hide a lot of the core work. So you don't always need to go out and do extra core finishes because we just hide it within your main session. For example, coming back to the landmine press, like doing a landmine press requires so much from your core. Your core is working overtime to make sure you do that workout, to do that exercise properly, sorry. When you're doing a row, single arm row, your core's working very hard to stabilize. When you're doing a chin up, having to brace, the core's working overtime again. So if you can kind of hide this stuff in, it makes your workouts more efficient and gets you in and out of the gym a lot quicker, but you get twice the results in half the time, which, if you ask me, that's not a bad thing, right? We then go into single leg and lunge variations. So we're looking at reverse lunges, we're looking at step ups, we're looking at single leg RDLs, we're looking at hamstring curls, single leg hamstring curls. We start to target your stability on a single leg, your strength on a single leg, and we can target a little bit further the hamstring. I like to do a lot of single leg hamstring work. I think that's quite a good one for players because I think the hamstrings are probably one of the most neglected areas when it comes to gym work for performance. This will help you to balance out any imbalances you might have from playing football, which, by the way, is very, very normal. Imbalances are a normal part of playing sport. Just have a sip of my water. They're a very normal part of playing sport. If you look at a tennis, their right arm, if they're right-handed, is always going to be more powerful. Their right forearm is always going to be more powerful than their left, which is absolutely fine. It's a normal part of the sport. It's important for their sport, for them to perform. And the same applies to football. If you're predominantly right-footed, you're going to be a bit stronger with that right around the hip, around the groin, because you're always kicking with that. But you don't want the strength deficit to be so great that it affects your movement and your sprinting and your potential injury risk on the left-hand side, which is why we use the gym as a tool to help level out those imbalances. And that's where the single leg and lunging variation can come in and be really, really effective for you. Excuse me. So, where do we go from there? We go into core, rotational and anti-rotational exercises. If we're looking at anti-rotational exercises, a Pallof press is probably the go of anti-rotational exercises because number one, it's fucking hard, and number two, there's a lot of different progressions and variations you can add to that. So when you're doing a Pallof press, you might start with a band, and then with that same band, you might move further away from the anchor point, and already that exercise becomes more difficult. We then progress that to maybe a cable where we've got more load through that movement, and then we might progress to a single leg variation. So there's so many different ways you can progress a Pallof press. You can do it kneeling, you can do it half kneeling, you can do it in a split stance, we could do it on a single leg, we could do it further from the anchor point if you're using bands. Obviously that doesn't really apply to cables. If you're doing a Pallof press, whether it's close or far, it doesn't really make too much. The load is generally going to be the same. But it's great for your core stability and it'll help you transfer your force. If your core's weak, there's a kink in the chain there and there'll be energy leaking. So you need to make sure your core is very, very strong. And if your core's strong, you will be able to transfer that force really efficiently when you're performing movements on the football pitch, when you're striking a ball, when you're jumping for a header, when you're sprinting, when you're going to a 50-50. And then we finish up the workout with accessory work or a focus on your weak areas. So often for footballers, especially the guys and girls we train in the program, we see the adductors are problem areas, the calves are problem areas, and sometimes the hamstring can be problem areas. So we focus on those areas. I'd like to throw the feet in there as well. We try to do a bit of feet strengthening work, foot strengthening work. I think that's an often neglected part of the body. And again, this kind of falls in alignment with what I was just saying about the core leaking energy. If the feet are leaking energy, again, you're never going to be able to produce that force and transfer force 100%. It's going to be like 80% transfer or 85% transfer force. You want 100%. You don't want any of that energy leaking. That work you do at the end of the workout with the accessory work that's your injury prevention work. We can also implement, and if you are a player who wants to focus a bit more on your aesthetics, on how you look, and there's a lot of lads in the program who do want to do this. We often do a lot of this around like holidays and stuff when they want to try and build their bodies out a bit. This is the time of the workout that we start to add your higher rep pump aesthetic type work. So we might do some bicep curls. We might do some tricep extensions. We might do some pressing for the chest, or some cable flies, just to build out those areas, just to give it a bit more attention. If someone, like one of the lads in the program, I won't say his name, but he's got quite a rounded back at the moment, and he wants to try and work on that posture and open up that chest a bit, that requires some focus around his upper back, around the traps and around all the muscles around the shoulder blade. So that means he's doing a lot of face pull exercises, a lot of kind of shrugging exercises, focus on bringing the shoulder blade back. So a lot of his accessory work, a lot of the focus on his weak areas and his problem areas is going to be around that. So it's highly individualized. Obviously what I'm giving to you guys is an example, but you can take this and individualize it to yourself. And this is what we do for a lot of our guys in the program. So that last part of the workout, really important. It's a focus on the weak areas, maybe the areas that often show up as injuries for a lot of footballers, and that's why we always put adductors, calves, and hamstring work in there, because they're some of the most commonly injured areas. And then if you're feeling quite good in those, you might want to focus on what your specific problem areas are. So it could, again, be working on some biceps, working on triceps, maybe building up the aesthetic side of things. So there is kind of that's what the movement patterns look like, okay? They must be included across all of your workouts, all right? And if your training week doesn't hit all of these, you are missing key areas that are going to drive your speed, drive your power, drive your injury prevention, okay? Remember, this is not a bodybuilding split. It's a performance-focused system that we're looking at here. This is what the strength code is, all right? So how does this now look as we build it into a training week? Quite simply, what I've done here, for those of you watching who can see the visual right now, if you're on YouTube or even if you're on Spotify with the visual, you can see there's three days that are split across the week here. Now, I'm going to talk you through this. I'm going to show you how we built this. So what I've done is we've looked at the movement patterns we've got on the left-hand side. So we've got our 8 movement patterns, our power, plyometrics, our squat, our hinge, pushing, pressing, pulling, rowing, our single leg exercises, our core work, our accessory weak areas. We then need to pair exercises together into supersets and trisets. So how do we do that? We look at different movements that compare together with the second exercise of that movement is not going to impact the first exercise of that paired movement. So let's look at day one. Day one being, we're going to start with some horizontal power. So we're going to be performing broad jumps where we're jumping out as far as we can. A great way to develop horizontal power. This has a knock-on effect on your acceleration and on that first step explosiveness, doing a broad jump. We could do continuous broad jumps. You could do single leg broad jumps if you're more advanced. We know in day one we've got horizontal power in the form of broad jumps, right? So in day two, I'm probably going to want some vertical power because I'm already ticking the box for horizontal power in day one. So in day two, we've then got some depth jumps or some box jumps. So we're working a bit more vertical power, a bit more reactive. It's a bit more intensive, that one. You don't tend to do too many reps of these. It's all about quality over quantity. And then in day three, I've gone for a pogo jump, something a bit more extensive to build a bit of ankle stiffness and tendon stiffness to help me develop qualities that I'm trying to build around speed and around power. Okay, so I've explained that in what, 2 minutes? Across 3 days, we've now got all the 3 different plyometrics that we need, the power work that we need. Really, really simple. This is as simple as it gets. We then go into our main lifts. So we go, okay, I'm going to go for a front squat on day one. I'm going to go for a front squat. That's my big lift of the day, but I'm going to superset that. Now, I'm not going to superset a front squat with another lower body exercise, because then that lower body exercise is going to take away from me trying to improve my front squat, because I'm going to be fatigued. It's going to become harder. It's a very, very highly demanding exercise, the front squat. So what can I pair that with? Well, I'll pair it with a weighted press up, because I know after doing a front squat, I can drop down, put a weight plate on my back and go straight into a weighted press up. That's not going to affect me too much when I go back into my front squat for the second, third, fourth set. Already, I've now got a really effective superset to start my workout with. I've done my power work in the broad jump. I've now gone into a front squat and a weighted press up, and I've done that for a set number of reps and sets. My second superset is now going to go into some pulling or rowing movement. So I'm going to go into a chin up. I'm going to superset the chin up with a lateral lunge. Why am I doing that? Because the chin up is working my upper body pulling, my upper, and then my lateral lunge is my single leg movement pattern, but I'm doing it on through a lateral plane of motion. So that's, again, really important for change of direction and agility, making sure you're including lateral movements in there. Again, the lateral lunges are going to take away from the chin up. The chin up's not going to take away from the lateral lunge. So that superset works really, really well. And then as a finisher, I've got Pallof press with knee over toe calf raises. Calf being my biggest problem area. I had a big injury last year for the calves, so I always like to keep on top of that. I always like to make sure that I don't get that niggle again that I had last year. I want to make sure I really stay strong through the calves and through the Achilles. Every single one of my workouts finishes with calf work, sometimes with adductor work. I've superset that with the core work, two areas which don't really take away from each other. The calf raise aren't going to affect my Pallof press isn't going to affect my calf raises. Within about 5 minutes, guys, I've just created a full body strength and power session for football. Now, the biggest problem players make now is they just repeat that same workout, but they don't realise there's other movements now we need to plug for the remainder of the week. So coming back to what I said for day 2, we know we've got a vertical power for the depth jumps to start the workout. If I've done a front squat on, say, Monday on day 1, my second session doesn't need to be another squatting movement. I probably want it to be a hinging movement. The opposite of a squat would be a hinge. So I'm going to throw a trap bar deadlift in as my main lift. On day 1, I did a weighted press up. So I still want an upper body pushing exercise, but maybe I don't do one that's going to look exactly the same as a press up where I'm pressing out in front. Maybe I'm pressing up overhead now. So I do a single arm dumbbell press. Why do I go for a single arm? Because I know if the weight's on one side, I'm going to be testing my core stability more rather than just doing a seated dumbbell press. And it's common sense if you think about it. If you're sitting there on a bench, back supported, 2 heavy dumbbells in your hands, you're pressing up overhead, you're purely training your shoulders, there's not much else going on. Yes, there's a bit of bracing. If I then stand up, take that same heavy dumbbell and overhead on a single arm, I can guarantee that is going to be more difficult because it requires a lot more from my core, from my legs, requires a bit more coordination. It's going to be much more demanding. And if that's going to make my core stronger as well as my upper body, then why would I not do that? So a single arm dumbbell press goes really nicely with the trap bar deadlift, which we just mentioned, as our first superset. I do my trap bar deadlift, the weight goes down, I pick up a dumbbell, and I press up overhead. It's as simple as that. So that's superset 1 for day 2 completed. We then go into a tricep. So the tricep being 3 exercises back to back. This is a great way to build your work capacity as a footballer. So you get a bit of a blow on at this point. When you're doing a dumbbell, as you can see here, we've got a double arm dumbbell bent row. So it's a bent over row. We go from that straight into a dumbbell step up on the right and left leg. And then straight from there, we go into a plank, maybe 60, 90, 120 seconds. Those 3 exercises back to back, done for 2-3 sets, will be challenging. 100% will be challenging, no matter what level you are, because the weight's going to be a good load. It's going to be a good amount. There'll be a decent number of reps in there. And then we're hitting the core as well, which always makes things a little bit more demanding. And this will build your work capacity over time, so you're actually getting fitter as well as getting stronger. You kill 2. This is what makes really efficient workouts. Supersets and trisets are a very, very, very effective tool for footballers. I would highly recommend you utilise them if you're not already. And then where do we finish with the day 2 workout? Well, again, I like to personally work on my calves, so I'm going to a leg press calf raise. On day 1, I did knee over toe calf raises, so that's targeting a bit more the lower calf. So on day 2, I'll probably go for a straight leg variation of a calf raise. So now I'm hitting 2 different top parts of the calf. You can see where the rationale and the logic starts to come in. When you start to understand this, you can see why I've got the front squat there and why I've got the trap bar deadlift there. Why I've got the weighted press up here and why I've got the single arm dumbbell press over there. Why am I not doing chin-ups 2 days in a row? Because, well, I don't need to. There's a different type of pulling and rowing variation. I'm hitting the back from 2 different angles. I'm training the upper body, pulling and rowing movements from 2 different exercises. When you start to understand this, and this is what I help my players do in the program, is not just give them this, but also, once I built this out, I help them to understand it so they really know why I'm doing it and how this is going to help me get closer to my ultimate goal of being a better athlete, or whatever it might be, getting faster, getting back on the pitch, injury-free, getting stronger, winning more headers, whatever it might be. The training reflects that, and then the education behind it comes from me to help them to get to that point where they're in a really good position. Almost once they learn it, they know this. They know this for life, essentially, which is a great place to be in. So I've said day one, I've said day two. You could leave it there and say, listen, I'm hitting all the main movement patterns. Like, we're in a good spot, especially if you've got a really heavy football schedule, like two sessions a week, more than enough. If you want to throw a third session in there, you say, okay, well, we mentioned the extensive plyometric at the beginning. I've hit a front squat on day one. I've hit a hinging movement on day two. I might go for a single leg variation on day three as my main lift. So split squats are going to be straight at the beginning of the workout. And I'm actually going to maybe work on a landmine press with that. So a split squat straight into a landmine press. The reason why I've chosen that is because I know the setup in the gym, in my gym, for example, that works really, really well. The reason why it works well is because I know where my squat rack is, where I'm going to be doing my split squats with the barbell. There's a landmine attachment to that squat rack where I can put the barbell in and then press it up on a single arm for both my right and left arm. So it just makes my workout even better because I'm not running left, right, centre, here, there, and everywhere in the gym, which is the worst thing in the world, especially during busy hours when you're training, which most players are, right? So my first superset, I've got a split squat and a landmine press. We then go into another tricep. Want to build a bit of work capacity, something for the upper back, face pulls, working a bit more on the posture. You then got a reverse lunge, and then we've got a wood chop. So reverse lunge, great exercise. If you're not doing these already, I would highly recommend it. And if you want to bias your glutes and your posterior chain a bit more, any type of lunging exercise, lean into it. When you lean forward, when you lean into it, that's going to bias the glutes and the hamstrings a lot more, which will have a knock-on effect on your posterior chain strength. And then we've got a wood chop in there because, well, it's a rotational exercise. We know on day one we did an anti-rotational with the pal-off. On day two we did some bracing with the plank. So day three we're going to do some rotational work with a wood chop. And then we're going to finish with some adductor work because we've taken care of the calves across day 1 and 2. So we might finish with some Copenhagen's. Planks are brilliant. Both bent knee and straight leg variations, highly recommend. If you're not doing these at the moment, you should start adding them because they will not only develop your hip and groin strength, they'll work your core very hard. If you try and hold a straight leg Copenhagen for anywhere between 20 to 30 seconds, I can guarantee by the end of that 30 seconds, you are going to be shaking. Guaranteed. Any of these exercises you can see in front of you, if you're not sure how to do them, the big ones really being the pal-off press, the Copenhagen's. A lot of players, these exercises seem to be new to them. Drop me a message, I'll send you a video demo of me doing it, just so it's something you can maybe add to your workouts and give a go. But they should be almost non-negotiables. They're really good exercises if you want to develop anti-rotational ability in your core and also some adductor and hip strength through the groins. Okay. So that there gives a 3-day split. Now you could run this, what you see in front of you, what I've spoken about, you could run this for 6, 8, 10 weeks if you really wanted to. Providing you implement the principle of progressive overload, so try and lift a little bit more, maybe adding a set, maybe adding some reps. And I know I've not spoken too much about sets or reps today, which is what my is in depth on, which you guys will definitely want a copy of off the back of this. Once you implement that principle of progressive overload, you will get stronger. You'll be a different animal if you stick at this. The most important thing with this is you're consistent with your efforts. Don't chop and change. Don't stop, start. Just show up. Do the work. 2, if not 3 sessions a week. And you run this, I can guarantee you're going to be a different animal. This is essentially the blueprint behind the Footballer'S strength code that I've created. It's how you can train smarter, move better, and how you can ultimately dominate across 90 minutes. If you want a copy of the strength code that I've created, it breaks down. It's a 3-day training split, similar to what you see in front of you, but it's got full video demonstrations, it's got full sets, it's got full reps, rest periods, and some additional bits in there. Comment somewhere around this video the word strength, DM me the word strength on Instagram, or there might even be a link in the corner of this video which you can click on and access it for free, and that will allow you to dominate over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Hope you guys have a good one. If you've got any questions off the back of this, as always, please drop me a message. Have a good one.